I'm Charlie Munger. I'm 99 years old, and I don't have much time left. Not in a sad way, just in the mathematical sense that sooner or later the clock runs out. I've lived through wars, depressions, booms, and bubbles. I've watched empires rise and collapse, fortunes made and destroyed, geniuses ruin themselves, and ordinary people quietly build greatness. When you've watched almost a century of human behavior, you stop believing in magic formulas. You start to see patterns, how people repeat the same mistakes over and over because they want things to be easier than they really are. Everyone keeps asking for a shortcut, the stock, the secret, the hack that will make them rich next year. But success doesn't work that way. Success isn't complicated, it's just hard. Hard because it demands consistency long after excitement fades. Hard because discipline never looks heroic in the moment. People crave drama, markets reward patience. That's the paradox I've seen play out my entire life. If I've learned anything across 99 years, it's that intelligence is overrated. I've met brilliant men who couldn't stay solvent, and average men who became legends simply by avoiding stupidity. High IQ helps, but clear thinking matters more. It's not how fast your mind runs. It's whether you know where it's going and what potholes to steer around. When I was young, I thought wisdom meant having all the answers. Now I know it means recognizing which questions aren't worth asking, which games aren't worth playing, which crowds you shouldn't follow. You don't win by being the smartest person in the room. You win by being the least foolish, the one who stays rational while everyone else loses their mind. Being rational when everyone else has lost their minds, that's the real edge. I'll tell you something that sounds boring, but it made me richer than any genius insight. Patience. The kind of patience that doesn't look impressive, the kind that nobody claps for, the kind that quietly compounds while the world is busy chasing noise. When I was young, I had none of it. I wanted results, fast. I thought intelligence would compensate for time. I believed that if I just worked harder, read more, analyzed faster, I could outsmart the waiting. I remember watching other people make money in ventures I had passed on. Every success story stung like a paper cut. Someone would tell me how they doubled their money in 6 months, and I'd feel that tight, jealous twist in my chest. I'd think, Charlie, you fool. You missed it again. That's the curse of youth. You see other people sprinting and assume you're standing still, when in fact they're running in circles. Over time, I learned a painful but liberating truth. For every story you hear about the one that skyrocketed, there are 10 that crashed and burned, and nobody brags about those. You don't see the bankruptcies, the divorces, the sleepless nights, the silent panic. You only see the highlight reel. The world hides its losses and advertises its wins, and if you're not careful, you'll spend your life chasing illusions. Warren and I used to say, half-jokingly, that the big money is made in the ass sitting. Crude, but true. Most fortunes aren't built through constant motion. They're built through long periods of intelligent inactivity. We made our money not by being clever stock pickers, but by finding a few great businesses and doing absolutely nothing for decades. Berkshire Hathaway still holds shares we bought half a century ago. People think that's loyalty. It's not. It's rationality. When you find a business so good that selling it would be stupid, you simply hold on. But patience isn't just about holding stocks. It's a mental posture. It's how you approach every part of life. Investing, relationships, learning, even self-improvement. It's understanding that compounding needs time, and time won't cooperate unless you respect it. At first, waiting feels like torture. Your mind keeps whispering that you're falling behind. You see everyone else moving, and you feel foolish for sitting still. But after a few decades, you start to see the pattern. Impatience destroys more fortunes than stupidity ever did. People get bored, they tinker, they panic, they try to be clever. They turn good positions into bad ones simply because they can't stand the silence. The best investments in my life were not the ones I bought or sold at the perfect time. They were the ones I did nothing with. The discipline to do nothing, to let time do the heavy lifting, is the most underrated skill in finance and in life. If I could go back and talk to my 25-year-old self, I'd tell him one thing. Whatever you think your timeline is, triple it. You want to be rich by 30? Plan for 45. You want to master your craft in 5 years? Give yourself 15. Real compounding doesn't happen in quarters or even years. It happens in decades. Time is the multiplier most people ignore because they're too busy looking for leverage. The irony is cruel. When you're young, you have all the time, but no patience. By the time you've learned patience, you've run out of time. The smart ones figure this out early. They stop rushing. They stop trying to harvest what hasn't yet grown. They plant good seeds, tend the soil, and wait. But patience alone isn't enough. You also need a sense of enough. That's something almost nobody talks about anymore. Everyone's obsessed with more. More money, more houses, more followers, more everything. But more is a treadmill. It never ends, and it doesn't make you freer. It just makes the slope steeper. I've lived in the same modest house for 70 years. People call me frugal. Maybe I am, but I don't need a mansion to think clearly, and I don't want one to complicate my life. I drive a normal car, wear normal clothes, eat simple meals. I could live extravagantly, but why would I? A bigger house just means more maintenance, more staff, more worries. A yacht means yacht problems. A private jet means private headaches. Every upgrade steals a little piece of your peace. I once had a friend who got very rich during the tech boom, hundreds of millions. I thought he'd finally be happy. Instead, he became miserable. He spent years worrying about losing it, about taxes, lawsuits, spoiled children, fake friends. His fortune didn't free him. It imprisoned him. That's the hidden cost of chasing more. The real secret of money is learning to need less. Once you have enough to live comfortably and securely, additional money doesn't buy freedom. It buys complexity. And complexity is the enemy of peace. Enough is one of the most powerful words in any language. It means you've stopped letting greed dictate your definition of success. It means you've stepped off the treadmill. Most people never do. They let their lifestyle inflate with their income, and suddenly they're trapped again. Same anxiety, just nicer furniture. At Berkshire, we've seen it 1,000 times. Companies drown in success because they keep expanding, keep acquiring, keep complicating what used to be simple. Individuals do the same. They confuse movement with progress and consumption with happiness. When you know what's enough for you, everything else becomes clearer. You make better decisions because you're not desperate. You invest better because you're not gambling for miracles. You sleep better because you're not lying awake defending an empire you didn't need in the first place. Freedom doesn't come from having everything. It comes from needing little. Freedom lives in the gap between what you earn and what you spend. That margin, that quiet space of restraint, is where all your power resides. It's where your patience breathes. Every great decision I've ever made came from that calm center, the place where I wasn't chasing, wasn't comparing, wasn't rushing, just observing, thinking clearly, acting slowly. You don't need to be extraordinary to do that. You just need to resist the noise long enough to let time reward you. So, yes, patience made me rich, but not because I waited for the perfect trade or the perfect market. It made me rich because it rewired how I think about time, effort, and satisfaction. It taught me that the real game isn't speed, it's endurance. That wealth is what you don't see. The peace of mind that comes from knowing you already have enough. Patience compounds, just like money, just like knowledge. I never stop learning. Warren and I, we're learning machines. That's not a metaphor. It's a way of life. Every single day we wake up with the same simple goal. Go to bed a little wiser than when we woke up. It doesn't matter how much money you already have or how old you are. The moment you stop learning, you start decaying. The world keeps changing, and if you refuse to change with it, you're not standing still. You're falling behind. People often assume that our success came from some extraordinary intelligence or rare insight. They're wrong. It came from curiosity, relentless, disciplined curiosity. We spent our lives reading, thinking, and arguing. Warren reads more than 10 newspapers a day. I read everything from physics to psychology to history. The goal isn't to collect trivia. It's to build a latticework of mental models, a web of principles from multiple disciplines that helps you understand how the world truly works. You can't solve complex problems using a single lens. If all you know is economics, you'll miss the psychology. If all you know is psychology, you'll miss the mathematics. If all you know is finance, you'll miss the physics of systems and the biology of survival. The big insights don't come from digging deeper into your narrow hole. They come from connecting ideas across fields. When you start seeing how incentives, feedback loops, and human behavior interact, the world stops being chaotic and starts being legible. I have often said that the most useful thing you can learn is how to learn across disciplines. The ability to transfer ideas from one area to another multiplies your insight exponentially. It's like compounding for the mind. And just like money, knowledge compounds only if you keep adding to it consistently and let time do the rest. But here's the catch. Learning isn't just about acquiring information. It's about updating your thinking when you're wrong. And that's the hard part, because the biggest barrier to learning is ego. Most people would rather defend their old ideas than admit they're outdated. They cling to what once worked and then wonder why it stops working. I've seen entire industries collapse because smart people refuse to change their minds. At Berkshire, we survived because we learned, constantly. We didn't assume yesterday's success guaranteed tomorrow's results. When something stopped working, we asked why. When we made a mistake, we dissected it like a scientist studying a specimen. That process of treating mistakes as data rather than disasters is the single greatest advantage you can have. Mistakes are tuition. Pay once, learn forever. I've made more mistakes than most people you'll ever meet. Some cost me money, others cost me time, a few cost me sleep, but every one of them bought me wisdom, expensive wisdom. The goal isn't to avoid mistakes altogether. That's impossible. The goal is to avoid fatal mistakes, the ones you can't recover from, and to extract every lesson from the rest. Warren and I often talk about two kinds of errors: errors of commission and errors of omission. Commission is when you do something you shouldn't have done. Buy the wrong stock, trust the wrong person, chase the wrong idea. Omission is when you fail to do something you should have done, missed an opportunity, passed on a great business, ignored an obvious trend. Both hurt, but omission often hurts more because you don't see the loss. It's invisible. It's the money you never made, the life you never lived. Let me give you two examples. Years ago, we had the chance to invest early in Walmart. We thought it was too expensive. We passed. That one decision probably cost us $10 billion, maybe more. It wasn't the end of the world, but it was a sharp reminder that being too cautious can be just as costly as being reckless. From that day on, I paid close attention to opportunities that looked too obvious. Sometimes the best ideas are sitting right in front of you, and your own sophistication blinds you to them. On the other hand, we bought See's candies when many people thought we were overpaying. The numbers didn't look spectacular on paper, but the quality of the business, the brand loyalty, the pricing power, the simplicity was extraordinary. That decision taught us that a wonderful business at a fair price beats a fair business at a wonderful price. Both lessons, Walmart and See's, were expensive, but together they shaped how we invest to this day. What separates successful people from everyone else isn't that they make fewer mistakes. It's that they analyze them more honestly. They don't bury them, justify them, or blame others for them. They perform postmortems. After every bad investment, Warren and I would sit down and write, what did we miss? What assumptions failed? What red flags did we ignore? If you don't write it down, you'll forget. And if you forget, you'll repeat it. Knowing is cheap. Remembering is hard, unless you write it down. That's why I tell young people, keep a decision journal. Every major choice, whether to invest, to switch jobs, to trust someone, write down your reasoning at the time, then revisit it later. You'll be amazed at how often you were wrong for reasons you didn't even see. Over years, that practice will calibrate your judgment better than any MBA program ever could. Learning is cumulative. Every principle, every failure, every model you add builds on the last. Eventually, you reach a point where decisions that seem complex to others become almost intuitive to you. You see patterns before they form because you've seen them before in another context. That's what people call wisdom. It's not mystical. It's pattern recognition born from long exposure and honest reflection. When you keep learning across disciplines, you also develop intellectual humility. You realize how interconnected everything is and how little you actually know. That humility protects you from arrogance, which is the silent killer of great minds. The moment you think you're too smart to be wrong, you've stopped thinking altogether. The older I get, the more I see learning as survival. Species that don't adapt die. Businesses that don't evolve vanish. Investors who don't update their models go broke. Life rewards curiosity and punishes complacency. It's as simple as that. And here's the beautiful irony. The more you learn, the more you realize that simplicity wins. When you truly understand how systems interact, you start stripping away the unnecessary. Complexity becomes a form of ignorance, an elaborate disguise for confusion. The wise man simplifies, because he sees the essence. The fool complicates because he can't. So keep learning, keep questioning, keep adjusting. Read widely, listen carefully, write down your reasoning, revisit your mistakes, study failure, the world's and your own. And when you're wrong, admit it fast, fix it faster, and never be ashamed of it. The only real shame is refusing to learn. After almost a century of trial and error, I've learned that the surest path to long-term success isn't brilliance or luck. It's the compounding of small, consistent improvements. You don't need to leap forward every year. You just need to avoid sliding backward. The great paradox of wisdom is that it's built on error. The difference is that wise people extract the lessons while everyone else repeats the pattern. If you stay curious, stay humble, and keep connecting ideas across fields, you'll eventually build a mental toolkit so rich that decision-making feels almost effortless. You'll see traps before you step into them, opportunities before they're obvious, and mistakes before they metastasize. And when that happens, you'll realize what I finally learned after all these years. You don't need to be smarter than everyone else. You just need to pay attention longer. Because attention, like patience and knowledge, compounds. And if you let it, it will make you wiser than you ever thought possible. In the end, that's the secret. Keep learning, keep observing, and keep refining your models. Because if you do, you'll avoid traps other people fall into, not because you're smarter, but because you've been paying attention longer. If you pick the right work, it doesn't feel like work. I've been saying that for decades, and it's still true. I'm 99, and I still go to the office, not because I need the money, but because I genuinely enjoy what I do. The secret to longevity, both in business and in life, isn't discipline alone. It's alignment. When your values and your work point in the same direction, effort feels natural and time becomes your ally instead of your enemy. Most people never find that alignment because they choose based on prestige, money, or pressure. They chase titles, not meaning. They spend 40 years doing something they tolerate at best and despise at worst, and then wonder why they feel empty. Let me save you a few decades of pain. The right work isn't something that pays the most. It's something that compounds your integrity, your curiosity, and your relationships. If you find that, the rest takes care of itself. Over the years, I've come to live by a handful of rules, 7, to be exact. They've guided every major decision of my life, from the companies I've invested in to the people I've chosen to work with. They're not theories, they're filters. Run every decision through them, and you'll avoid most of the stupidity that ruins otherwise smart lives. Rule 1, only sell what you'd buy. Your self-integrity isn't just a moral preference, it's an economic advantage. The moment you sell something you wouldn't buy yourself, whether it's a product, an investment, or an idea, you start eroding your own judgment. You become a salesman instead of a truth seeker, and once you cross that line, it's hard to come back. I've never recommended an investment I wouldn't make personally, never endorsed an opportunity I didn't believe in. The market is full of people trading their conscience for commission. They win in the short term, but lose in the long run, because trust is the ultimate currency. Once people stop believing your word, all the cleverness in the world can't save you. Trigger, every quarter, audit yourself. Ask, would I buy what I'm selling? If the answer is no, stop immediately. No profit is worth the corrosion of your character. Rule 2, choose people. Before you choose work, the people you surround yourself with shape everything, your decisions, your energy, your sanity. Warren and I have worked together for over 60 years because we genuinely like each other. We think alike, we argue productively, and we laugh often. That's the rarest form of partnership, one that compounds goodwill instead of resentment. Life is too short to do business with people you don't respect. You can survive a bad market, but not a bad partner. I've turned down deals that looked like gold because I couldn't stand the people involved. Every time, I was glad I did. Money can buy almost anything, except peace of mind. Trigger, before any major collaboration, imagine having dinner with that person once a week for the next 5 years. If that thought makes you uneasy, walk away. No deal is worth losing your appetite. Rule 3, reputation is built slowly and destroyed quickly. You can rebuild wealth. You can rebuild a business. Rebuilding reputation, that's nearly impossible. It takes decades of consistent behavior to build trust, and one careless decision to shatter it. I've seen brilliant people implode because they thought they could cut corners just once. They tell themselves They'll make it up later, that it's a small thing, that nobody will notice. The truth is, you always notice. The first lie you tell isn't to others, it's to yourself. And that lie compounds. Guard your reputation like it's your most valuable asset, because it is. Everything else you do, your investments, your relationships, your opportunities, depends on it. Trigger. Before every decision, pause and ask, would I be proud to see this on the front page tomorrow morning? If not, stop. Shortcuts are the fastest way to the wrong destination. Rule 4. Simplicity beats complexity. Smart people have a dangerous weakness. They love to complicate things. It makes them feel clever. But complexity is fragile. It creates more points of failure, more moving parts that can break, more hidden risks. I've watched this play out 1,000 times. Someone builds a beautiful, simple business that works. Then they get ambitious. They expand into new markets, add products, hire consultants, introduce strategic synergies. Eventually, the system collapses under its own weight. At Berkshire, we do the opposite. We buy simple, understandable businesses run by trustworthy people, and then we leave them alone. No derivatives, no financial engineering, no constant tinkering. Simplicity makes systems robust. Complexity makes them brittle. Trigger. Once a month, take inventory of your commitments, your projects, your habits. Identify one layer of unnecessary complexity and remove it. Simplicity doesn't mean laziness, it means focus. Rule 5. Learn to say no as a strategy. Every yes you give is 1,000 silent no's to everything else you could be doing. Most people don't fail because they lack opportunity. They fail because they can't refuse mediocre ones. The world will drown you in options, and unless you develop the muscle to say no, you'll never have time for what truly matters. As you become more successful, this gets harder. Invitations multiply, offers increase. Everyone wants a piece of your time. That's why no must become your default setting. No protects your focus, your energy, and your priorities. Don't apologize for saying it. No is a complete sentence. You don't owe anyone an explanation. Trigger. Each week, consciously decline at least 2 requests or tasks that don't fall within your top 3 priorities. Treat it as practice. The ability to decline gracefully is a superpower. Rule 6. Inaction is a strategy. We live in a culture that worships activity. Everyone's busy, everyone's hustling, everyone's chasing something. But constant motion isn't progress, it's exhaustion. Most of the money I've made came from sitting still. Most of the mistakes I've avoided came from doing nothing. People think they need to act constantly to stay relevant. They jump in and out of trades, careers, relationships, fads, and almost every time, they would have been better off waiting. Inaction doesn't mean laziness. It means having the discipline to wait for the right pitch. Warren and I often joke that investing is like baseball with no called strikes. You can stand there all day and wait for the perfect pitch, and the only time you lose is when you swing at garbage. The same applies to life. You don't have to react to everything. Most opportunities are traps in disguise. Trigger. Before taking any new action, ask, do I have a clear advantage here? Do I have an edge? If the answer is no, stay still. Sometimes the best move is none at all. Rule 7. Health is the foundation of judgment. Your mind is only as sharp as the body that carries it. I've seen people work themselves into the ground, sacrificing sleep, diet, and sanity for short-term gains. They think they can fix it later, but the body doesn't run on IOUs. When it breaks, it doesn't send a warning. It just stops cooperating. I'm not obsessive about health, but I am consistent. I walk, I read, I sleep well, and I avoid unnecessary stress. It's not glamorous, but it works. Health compounds like money. Small habits, done consistently over decades, create enormous dividends. Neglect does the opposite. And remember, health isn't just physical, it's mental. The ability to think clearly under pressure, to stay calm when others panic, to resist impulsive behavior, those are products of balance, not chaos. Trigger. Follow the 3x30 rule daily. 30 minutes of movement, 30 minutes of reading, 30 minutes of quality rest beyond your normal sleep. It's a small investment that yields lifelong returns. When you weave these 7 rules together, you get something more than a checklist. You get a philosophy of life. Each rule reinforces the others. Integrity keeps you grounded. Simplicity keeps you focused. Patience keeps you sane. Together they build resilience, and resilience is what survives the storms. People often assume success comes from making brilliant moves. In reality, it comes from avoiding stupid ones. The world is full of brilliant people who outsmarted themselves into ruin because they ignored simple principles. The truth is, there's no prize for difficulty. You don't get extra points for making things complicated. In fact, complexity usually hides fragility, and fragility eventually breaks. Whenever I'm faced with a decision, business, personal, or moral, I run it through these filters. Does it align with my integrity? Am I working with the right people? Does it protect my reputation? Is it simple? Does it focus my time? Does it require unnecessary action? Does it preserve my health? If an opportunity fails any one of those tests, I let it go without regret. Over the years, this framework has saved me from countless disasters. Deals that looked exciting, but were ethically shaky. Partnerships that were profitable, but poisonous. Ventures that dazzled with complexity, but hid rot underneath. Each time I said no, I preserved energy, time, and peace of mind for the opportunities that truly mattered. I've probably missed thousands of chances to make money, but I've also avoided thousands of ways to lose it. That's the part people forget. For every story you hear about the investor who struck gold, there are dozens you'll never hear about. The ones who lost everything chasing excitement. The market doesn't publish obituaries for impatience. Warren and I have built our fortune not through genius, but through restraint. Our biggest successes came from what we didn't do, what we refused to touch. When everyone else was rushing in, we waited. When everyone was panicking, we stayed calm. When everyone was overcomplicating, we kept it simple. Simple outlasts clever, every single time. That's not just an investment philosophy, it's a way of living. Most of life's problems are self-inflicted by people trying to be too clever. They overthink, overtrade, overextend, overreact. They confuse activity with achievement. But the real masters of any field, whether it's investing, art, or science, share the same trait. They simplify. They strip away noise until only the essential remains. If you internalize these 7 rules, you'll find that decisions become easier, not harder. You'll act less, but achieve more. You'll sleep better. You'll trust yourself. And perhaps most importantly, you'll stay in the game long enough for compounding of money, of knowledge, of relationships, to do its quiet, miraculous work. These aren't theories, they're filters. Run every decision through them. The good ones will pass, the bad ones will fall away, and what remains will be worth your time. And remember, the world will always glorify activity, hustle, and constant motion. People will cheer for those who look busy, who make noise, who take reckless swings. They'll call it ambition, but most of the time it's just distraction dressed up as progress. We've made more money by sitting on our hands than by swinging at every pitch. We've preserved more wealth by not losing it than by chasing miracles. You don't get famous for waiting. You don't make headlines for restraint. But restraint is what builds empires that last. Most people can't do nothing. They equate stillness with failure. But sometimes the smartest move in life, and in investing, is to stand perfectly still while others lose their heads. Because inaction isn't glamorous, but it's often the most profitable decision you'll ever make. I see young people working themselves into the ground, like their bodies are replaceable, like sleep is optional, like burnout is some kind of badge of honor. They chase success so frantically that they forget what success is for. I've seen this movie many times. They make their first million, maybe their first 10, and then they spend the next decade repairing the damage they did to their mind and body to get there. That's a terrible trade. You can rebuild your business. You can't rebuild your body. Let me put it plainly. Health is the only asset you can't repurchase once it's gone. People talk about compounding in money, but health compounds too. Every night of good sleep, every walk, every balanced meal, every avoided vice, they all stack quietly in your favor. The payoff isn't visible at 25 or even 40. It shows up at 70, when you can still think clearly, still move without pain, still wake up curious instead of exhausted. That's real wealth. I've never been obsessed with health fads, but I've always been consistent. Moderation in everything, including moderation itself. I eat sensibly, I move daily, I sleep well, and I keep my stress low. I don't do this to live forever. I do it to stay functional. Longevity without vitality is a poor bargain. The goal isn't to add years to your life. It's to add life to your years. But health alone isn't enough. You also need relationships that matter. If I've learned anything across 9 decades, it's that the quality of your life equals the quality of your relationships. Money comes and goes. Health fluctuates. But true friendship and a loyal partnership, those, if nurtured, can last a lifetime. Warren and I have been friends and partners for over 60 years. People often ask how we've managed it. It's simple, but not easy. Respect, humor, and a complete absence of scorekeeping. We've never measured who was right more often, or who made which decision, or who got more credit. We trusted each other completely, and that trust freed us to focus on the work instead of ego. I've kept the same friends for decades. We've shared dinners, laughter, arguments, and silence. Those moments, not the zeros in my bank account, are what I remember most vividly. Success without people to share it with is hollow. And yet, I see young people today so absorbed in their careers that they let friendships wither. They skip birthdays, postpone visits, send texts instead of showing up. Then 20 years later, they wonder why they feel lonely. Relationships are like investments. You can't ignore them for years and expect them to yield. So here's my advice. Be loyal, show up, and don't keep score. Loyalty means staying when it's inconvenient. Showing up means being present, not distracted. Not keeping score means loving people for who they are, not for what they can do for you. The moment you start measuring reciprocity in a friendship, it's already dying. And when it comes to choosing who to spend your time with, choose people who make you better. Surround yourself with those who think clearly, act honestly, and laugh easily. Cynicism is contagious, but so is optimism. If you live among people who constantly complain, who gossip, who blame, eventually you'll start doing the same. Conversely, if you spend time with builders, learners, and truth-tellers, you'll rise to their level without even noticing. The third pillar, beyond health and relationships, is time, specifically understanding what enough means so you can spend your time wisely. I said it earlier, and I'll say it again. The real secret to money is figuring out how much is enough. Most people never stop to define it. They just keep raising the bar, moving the goalposts further away, and calling that ambition. But if you don't define enough, you'll never know when to stop. Enough isn't a number. It's a philosophy. It's that moment when your needs are met, your mind is calm, and your days belong to you. When you can wake up and decide what to do, not because of financial necessity, but because of genuine interest, that's freedom. And that freedom isn't about doing nothing. It's about doing the right things with the right people for the right reasons. I've watched people accumulate wealth far beyond what they could ever spend, only to spend their lives defending it, managing it, and worrying about losing it. They think they own their money, but really, their money owns them. Meanwhile, the happiest people I know are those who've mastered the art of sufficiency. They have enough, and they know it. They don't need to chase every opportunity or impress anyone. They've reclaimed their time. What good is wealth if you're too sick to enjoy it or too lonely to share it? That question haunts a lot of rich people, though few admit it. They reach old age with full accounts and empty calendars, surrounded by luxury, but starved of purpose. Don't let that happen to you. As I approach the end of my life, I think less about balance sheets and more about the moments that gave it meaning. The dinners with friends, the quiet walks, the laughter with family, the satisfaction of doing work that mattered. Those are the real dividends of a life well lived. I've made plenty of mistakes, but I don't regret the money I didn't make. I regret the times I was too cautious to take a chance, too busy to make the call, too proud to apologize. Most regrets are about what we didn't do, not what we did. The longer you live, the clearer that becomes. The risks worth taking aren't usually financial. They're emotional. Saying, I love you, saying I was wrong, saying I miss you. Those are the investments that never lose value. So if you're young, remember this. Work hard, but don't work yourself into the ground. Build wealth, but don't let it define you. Learn constantly, but not at the expense of a living. Take care of your health before it forces you to care about nothing else. Show up for people before you need them, and define enough before the world defines it for you. When all is said and done, a meaningful life isn't about accumulation. It's about alignment. Health gives you energy, relationships give you joy, and time gives you space to live deliberately. Together they form a kind of quiet wealth that no market crash can touch. Because at the end, what you'll remember aren't the deals or the numbers. You'll remember the people, the laughter, the days that felt full. You'll remember how you spent your time and who you spent it with. And that, truly, is what matters. A life that felt meaningful, not just successful. Here's what I hope you take from this. Be patient. Keep learning. Admit your mistakes. Those three alone will take you further than brilliance ever will. But if you followed me this far, you know there's more to it. A handful of principles that have quietly shaped my 99 years on this planet. I've repeated them not because they sound wise, but because they work. First, patience. The big money, the meaningful success, the enduring satisfaction, they all live on the other side of waiting. Not idle waiting, but disciplined waiting. The kind that resists the noise, honors the process, and lets time do its compounding. Every day, the world rewards the impulsive and punishes the patient until one day it reverses. Second, enough. Most people spend their lives chasing a moving target, always reaching for more, never stopping to ask, what am I trying to prove, and to whom? The secret isn't to earn more, it's to need less. Define enough early, and you'll buy yourself the one thing money can't, peace. Third, learning. Knowledge compounds just like capital, but only if you keep reinvesting it. Read broadly, think deeply, and update your beliefs when the facts change. The world doesn't care about your opinions. It cares whether your map matches the territory. Fourth, mistakes. Treat them as tuition, not tragedy. Make ones you can afford, learn from them, and never repeat them. The goal isn't perfection, it's progress by elimination, one less stupidity at a time. Fifth, people. Choose them wisely. Work with those you admire, befriend those who challenge you, and love those who make you kinder. Surround yourself with builders, not cynics. You'll start to resemble whoever you spend time with, so choose accordingly. Sixth, work. Do only what aligns with your integrity. Never sell what you wouldn't buy. Find work that feels like play with people you trust, and you'll never dread Mondays again. Seventh, simplicity. Complexity is the enemy of both wealth and wisdom. Strip away what doesn't matter. If a decision or process feels needlessly complicated, it probably is. The most robust systems, whether in investing or living, are the simplest ones. Eighth, saying no. Every yes costs you time, energy, and focus. The discipline to decline is what protects the discipline to excel. Most of life's noise comes from opportunities that should have been politely ignored. Ninth, health. Your body and mind are the infrastructure for every decision you'll ever make. Treat them like a long-term holding. Exercise moderation, sleep generously, think calmly. Compounding only works if you live long enough to see it. And finally, meaning. Health, wealth, and learning mean little without purpose. Invest in relationships. Make time for curiosity. Laugh often. Leave behind more wisdom than money. Because in the end, the goal isn't to die rich, it's to live well. Now, before you close this video or scroll to something else, I want you to do something. Wisdom doesn't stick unless it becomes habit. So here's a 7-day challenge. Simple actions that turn philosophy into practice. Day 1, write down what enough means to you. Be honest. Define it by values, not by numbers. Day 2, start a decision journal. Record one important choice you're facing and your reasoning behind it. Revisit it later to see what you missed. Day 3, do a postmortem on one financial mistake, large or small. What were you thinking at the time? What did you ignore? What rule will you add to prevent it next time? Day 4, audit your relationships and work. Are you surrounded by people you respect and admire? If not, make one small correction this week. Day 5, simplify something. Cancel a subscription, delete an app, delegate a task. Complexity hides waste, clarity creates focus. Day 6, practice saying no. Decline at least 2 requests that don't align with your top priorities. Protect your time like it's an investment, because it is. Day 7, the 3x30 ritual. 30 minutes of movement, 30 minutes of reading, 30 minutes of extra rest. Do it, and you'll end the week sharper than you started. These are small steps, but compounding doesn't begin big. It begins quietly, with one decision that nudges your life onto a better trajectory. And once you start, the returns are exponential. When you finish the week, come back and tell me, which goal did you triple the timeline for? That's your signal you've begun thinking like an investor in your own future. not a gambler chasing the present. If you take one thing from this conversation, let it be this. Wealth isn't measured in digits. It's measured in clarity, freedom, and peace of mind. The world will tempt you to trade all three for status. Don't. Think clearly, act wisely, and stay humble. You don't have to be the smartest. You just have to be less wrong consistently for a very long time. Compounding will take care of the rest. So, be patient. Be disciplined. Keep learning. Correct your course when you're wrong. Guard your health. Value your relationships. Live simply. Say no often. And for heaven's sake, define enough. Then use the rest of your time to build something that matters, something that will outlive you. Be rational, be kind, and build something that lasts. That's what I wish I'd known at your age. And if this resonated with you, subscribe. Not for me, but for yourself. Each week, we'll practice one new way to compound your thinking. Remember, getting rich isn't about being smarter. It's about being less wrong, one decision at a time.